Hey, who's the old guy in the beat-up jacket? Someone tell him to move, that area is for VIPs only. That's what the city staffer said, loud, public, no hesitation. Could this mockery hide a hero? He didn't know the man sitting alone on that bench had been coming there every morning for over 20 years, cleaning the memorials, saying names no one remembered. He didn't know the jacket he mocked carried a patch only 5 men were ever given, and only one still breathing. That's when the general stepped off the stage and the town of Rockford fell completely silent. Welcome to Graceful Valor Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Every small town in America has its rhythms. In Rockford, Maine, it begins with the wind, the kind of wind that schemes off the river at dawn, slides down Maple Street, and shakes the American flag that hangs above the door of Milan Maple, the town's oldest coffee shop. It rattles the sign just enough to chime the letters, and on some mornings, if you're there early enough, you'll catch the smell of maple bread warming in the back and the faint echo of a Patty Klein song coming from the radio inside. That's where I come in. I'm Maggie Grant. I've managed Milan Maple for going on 12 years now. I've seen every face that's ever wandered through that crooked old door. Teenagers needing Wi-Fi linemen after a long night shift, old-timers clinging to routine like a second cup of coffee. But one man has never missed a morning, not in all the years I've worked here, Walter Bishop. He walks in at precisely 6:40 a.m., not 6:39, not 6:41, and always through the side entrance, the one near the church parking lot. He's 86 now, moves slow but steady, wears the same silver-gray jacket every day, collar turned up, cuffs worn soft. His cap is dark blue, military style, and sits just low enough to cast a quiet shadow over his eyes. He never says much, just gives me a nod, settles into the corner booth near the window, and waits for the usual black coffee, no cream, no sugar, one corn muffin, toasted. I used to ask, now I just bring it. There's a notebook he keeps, brown leather tied at the side. He sets it next to the napkin holder like it belongs there. Sometimes he writes in it, sometimes he just stares out the window as the mail truck passes by. Right on schedule at 7:15, the locals call him a fixture. Me, I think he's something else entirely. Could this routine hide a deeper story? The Tuesday started like any other, cold wind, hot coffee, Walter, sitting there, same table, same rhythm, until he walked in. Dylan Rodas, new guy at the city office, community events coordinator or something fancy like that. Early 30s, tall, shiny brown shoes, the kind of man who walked like he was always 5 minutes behind, but too important to admit it. He came in with a gust of wind and a Bluetooth earpiece still blinking in one ear, pulled off his gloves like he was late for a press conference. Morning. He called, too loud for the hour. I gave him the polite nod. Coffee, triple shot espresso if you've got it, he said, setting his laptop bag right on the counter stool. Big week ahead. Veterans Day program is a mess. That got Walter's attention just slightly. He looked up only for a second, then returned to his page. Dylan noticed. Oh, he said, chuckling, still got the throne, huh? He motioned toward Walter's booth. That seat comes with a mortgage or just seniority? A couple regulars shifted in their seats. I said nothing, just poured the espresso. Dylan, not picking up the room's temperature, walked over to Walter's booth, arms folded, voice bright with that fake friendly tone people use when they're trying to be funny, but want to be noticed more than liked. Nice jacket, he said. Vintage or sentimental? Walter didn't look up. Dylan leaned in slightly. That patch, what is that? Looks like something from a Boy Scout camp in the 40s. He laughed, a quick snort, looked around, hoping for someone to join in. No one did. I stepped out from behind the counter, walked slowly toward them, holding a pot of coffee. Dylan, I said calmly, do you remember that news clipping I showed you about the man who saved a kid from getting hit at the corner of Maple and 5th? He blinked. Yeah, a few years back, 2010, I said. Little boy's name was Caleb Duncan. Car jumped the curb, would have been crushed. He nodded vaguely. Yeah, I think I remember. I turned slightly. That was Walter. Dylan's smile faded. Really? Walter didn't speak, just lifted his cup slightly as I topped it off, broke his wrist pulling the kid out of the way. I added, didn't tell a soul, just paid his tab and went home. The only sound for a moment was the radio behind the counter, a soft guitar strumming beneath a country draw. Dylan straightened awkwardly, cleared his throat. Well, he said, chuckling nervously, guess some folks really are full of surprises. He tapped the table twice, almost apologetically. Anyway, big week, I'll leave you to it. He turned and walked out the door, espresso in hand, the bell chiming behind him. I looked at Walter. He didn't flinch, didn't smirk, just kept writing. A few minutes later, the mail truck passed by outside. Walter glanced up, nodded once, and returned to his notebook. That's how it is with some men. They don't talk about the things they've done, they don't hang their medals on the wall, they just show up, same time, same place, and they wait for the world to remember or not. But after that day, people looked at Walter a little differently, not with pity, not with curiosity, with something closer to reverence. Could this shift reveal his true legacy? And maybe that's how it starts, when quiet honor finally echoes just loud enough to be heard. The next morning, the wind came early. It rustled through fallen Veterans Park before the sun had cleared the rooftops of Rockford. slipping through the chain-link gate and rattling the flagpoles that line the southern path at 6:03 a.m. The park was empty, except for him. Walter Bishop moved with slow, deliberate steps along the gravel path, his old canvas tote swinging gently at his side. The benches waited just like they always did, backs bowed under the weight of morning dew, names etched into brass plaques dulled by years of rain and sun. He didn't need a map, he knew exactly where to go. Bench number 7, just off the main loop, the one tucked beneath the tall pine near the memorial wall. Walter set the tote down, pulling out a cloth, and knelt slowly beside the bench. His knees cracked, but he didn't wince. He just leaned forward and began to wipe the seat clean, careful not to smear the water. Only lift it. He paused when he reached the plaque, Lieutenant Thomas Callahan, 1947 to 1969. He walked so others could return. Walter adjusted the small flag someone had left in the flower holder, tightening the base and tapping the soil flat. One marigold had fallen out of place. He put it back gently like it mattered, and to him it did. He stood slowly, brushing off his palms, and moved down the row, one bench, one plaque, one memory at a time. He wasn't on payroll, wasn't on any list, but every year in the week before Veterans Day, Walter came here. No one invited him, no one had to. At 6:41 a.m., the peace broke. The rumble of a city truck echoed off the trees. Orange cones clattered as they hit the pavement. A crew of temp workers stabbed with folding piers, banner poles, a speaker stand, and a clipboard. Always a clipboard. Dylan Rodas was the last to arrive, still clutching his coffee like it owed him something. He stepped out of the SUV and scanned the park like it was a problem to be solved. Then he saw Walter. "Sir," Dylan called out, voice too sharp for the morning quiet. "Sir, this area is closed right now." Walter didn't respond, just kept brushing pine needles from a nearby plaque. Dylan walked faster now, shoes crunching over loose gravel. "Hey, sir, you can't be here. We're setting up for the ceremony." Walter stood up, slow but steady, looked at him, not defiant, just tired. Dylan shifted his clipboard like a shield. "We've got permits, zones, liability coverage to worry about. Volunteers have to be credentialed. You're not on the list." Walter said nothing. From behind a trimmed hedge, another voice chimed in. "He's not on the list because he's been here longer than your permit." Dylan turned. Tina Alvarez stepped out, tugging off her gloves and shoving them in the back pocket of her field jacket. "City Parks Maintenance." Lean, sharp-eyed, not the type who needed a badge to be respected. "I've worked this park 10 years. She said, "and Mr. Bishop has been doing this since before I started." Dylan frowned. "He still needs clearance. It's about safety, liability." She held up a hand. "It's about respect." Walter didn't interrupt, he just knelt down again beside a weathered plaque. "This one for S. Diane Luring," and wiped it with the same slow care as before. Dylan sighed and turned away, muttering, "We're never going to be ready at this pace." But as he walked off, something caught his eye. The back of Walter's jacket had folded open slightly when he leaned down, revealing a patch near the shoulder, triangular, faded to a dull steel blue. Dylan squinted. Is that from the army?" he asked, more to himself than anyone else. He stepped forward, tapping the air. "Wait, I've seen that shape before. It's some kind of outdated unit insignia, right?" No one answered. He stared at the patch, then huffed. "Patch or no patch, it's just an old jacket." The words hung in the air like smoke, sharp, unnecessary, and noticed. Tina's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Walter stood slowly, turned, pulled the collar up just a bit higher, shielding the patch from view. Then he tipped his head toward Tina in quiet thanks, and walked away. Not fast, not angry, just gone. Dylan went back to directing cones, barking out zones for folding chairs, and pretending he hadn't just said something the wind would remember. Could this insult spark a revelation? "I got there around 7:20 carrying 2 cardboard trays of coffee and a sack of muffins for the setup crew. I spotted Walter leaving the park just as I pulled into the lot. Our eyes met briefly as he passed my car. He didn't speak, didn't smile, but something in the way he walked, slower than usual, eyes fixed ahead, made me pause. I handed out the drinks, nodded at Tina, then turned back toward the road, watched him disappear down the sidewalk, the hem of his silver jacket lifting in the breeze. I didn't know what Dylan had said, not exactly, but I could guess, and in that moment, I realized something. Walter didn't come to be seen, he came to keep a promise, a quiet one, and some promises are heavier than metals. Some oaths don't need a ceremony, they just need one man, a bench, and a cloth. Veterans Day arrived with crisp skies and a wind that couldn't decide if it was friendly or bitter. By 9 a.m., the town's small park was dressed in red, white, and blue. Folding chairs lined the gravel walkways in careful rows. Miniature flags flanked the outer paths planted by school children the day before, their stems still slightly crooked from tiny hands. A banner stretched across the modest wooden stage. "Rockford remembers." I was behind the coffee stand near the memorial wall, passing out cider and cinnamon buns to early arrivals. The air smelled like damp leaves, pine sap, and hope, the kind of scent that comes when a small town tries its best to honor something bigger than itself. Walter showed up without a word, same silver jacket, same dark blue cap. He didn't approach the stage, didn't join the crowd, he simply took his place on bench number 4, the one halfway down the right-hand path, shaded by the oak tree near the edge of the field. He sat with his hands folded over the head. Of a cane I'd never seen him carry before. The cane was black walnut, polished smooth, simple, unadorned, except for the initials carved near the base, TC, I noticed, and I wasn't the only one. The mayor gave a short opening speech. The middle school choir in matching cardigans sang America the Beautiful with more heart than harmony. Then came Dylan, clipboard in hand, tie slightly askew, voice 3 octaves higher than normal. Good morning, he began, and thank you all for joining us for Rockford's annual Veterans Day Remembrance Ceremony. He flipped through note cards like they were on fire. We'd like to welcome our special guest, General William T. Torrington. A pause, the silence in the crowd stiffened. Torrance, he corrected quickly. Yes, retired General William Torrance of the United States Army, decorated veteran of multiple campaigns and recipient of the, Bronze Cross or no, sorry, Silver Star, Bronze Star, both of those plus the Legion of Merit. A polite ripple of applause followed. Maggie Grant cringed behind the cider stand, and then he stepped out. General William Torrance, tall, straight-backed, hair silver, not white, cut sharp and neat above a square jaw, medals glinting in quiet rows across his left breast pocket. He walked with a presence that needed no introduction. 2 ROTC cadets trailed him, trying to match his pace. They couldn't. He climbed the 2 steps up to the stage, nodded once to Dylan, who looked visibly relieved to hand off the microphone. Then the general turned and stopped. His eyes scanned the rows of chairs, the stage, the flags, but they didn't settle there. They drifted offstage down the path toward bench number 4, toward Walter. I held my breath. Walter sat quietly, hat pulled low, hand still on the cane. He didn't move, didn't rise, didn't flinch. The general stepped down, not with fanfare, not with flourish, just 3 measured steps off the platform, down onto the gravel. The cadets hesitated, unsure what to do. The choir fidgeted. Dylan looked confused. The general walked forward, straight through the aisle, past the flagpoles, past the statue, until he stood directly in front of Walter Bishop, and then he saluted, crisp, exact, not a millimeter off. A silence fell so sudden, so complete even the breeze seemed to freeze. Walter didn't return the salute right away. He lifted his gaze slowly, met the general's eyes. The crowd leaned forward in collective breath. After a long moment, Walter rose carefully, deliberately, and brought his hand to his brow in return. The 2 men, one in full uniform, one in a battered silver jacket, stood there, saluting one another as if the rest of the world had vanished. And then the general lowered his hand, stepped back, and spoke. His voice was clear, firm, but low enough that you had to lean in to catch every word. That patch, he said, nodding toward the shoulder of Walter's jacket, was issued only once in a place that never made the newspapers. He looked at the crowd. 5 men wore it. He turned back, and today, I salute the last one standing. Gasps rippled across the field. A man near the front row dropped his program. A woman clutched her husband's arm. A little boy near the cider stand whispered, that's the man from the coffee shop. A teacher next to him nodded, lips parted. That's Walter. Someone else said softly, the man from Milan Maple. The general stepped aside, allowing Walter a clear view of the crowd. Walter didn't say anything, didn't wave, didn't bow. He just nodded once. The silence held, not from awkwardness, but awe. And then from somewhere offstage, a single trumpet began to play taps. The notes hung in the air like slow-falling feathers, and Walter Bishop, who never asked to be known, who sat in the corner booth of a coffee shop and wiped dew off benches in the dark, stood taller than anyone else in Rockford that day. Not by height, not by medals, but by something older, something deeper. A legacy. Could this moment redefine a town's heart? The next morning, the flag outside Milan Maple didn't wave. It hung still, limp from the quiet air, as if the town itself had paused to think. Inside, the cafe was unusually empty. No clink of spoons, no hum of early chatter, just the soft creak of wood and the low murmur of the radio playing some old gospel tune no one had requested. And Walter's table, table 3, by the window was empty for the first time in years, but not untouched. Folded neatly in the center of the table sat his silver gray jacket. The patch, for once, was fully visible, no longer tucked beneath a fold or hidden in the curve of his arm. Next to it sat a receipt, a simple piece of paper printed, total $3, scrolled underneath in careful cursive, Walter B. I stared at it for a long while, coffee pot in one hand, breath tight in my chest. He didn't say goodbye, he never did. Later that morning, Dylan came in quieter than usual, no clipboard, no phone. He looked at the table and froze mid-step. Is that his? He asked softly. I nodded. He sat down across from the jacket like it was a person, didn't touch it, didn't say anything more, just sat. By noon, we were at the Old Town Library. Tina met us out front holding the rusted key they only use for the basement archives. The main room smelled of paper and varnish. A fan creaked somewhere in the ceiling. We followed her down the narrow steps through rows of unused microfilm cabinets and Old Town records. Drawer 6B stuck on the left side. Tina yanked it open with a grunt. We scrolled through the reels in silence. Old headlines flickered past on the projector screen. Local 4-H heads to state. Mill flood damages. Mill Street Bridge. Council debates parking meters. Then we saw it. Nightfall drop. 5 rescued by Unknown Airman. The article was short, no byline, no interviews, just a single paragraph describing how after their pilot was killed in a nighttime op deep in Southeast Asia, 5 soldiers were carried to safety by an unidentified man who refused to give his name. It ended with this: who witnesses recall a patch, triangular blue, worn on the left shoulder. It does not match any known inventory. The man disappeared before recognition could be given. We stared at the screen, no one spoke. Tina finally broke the silence. Think that's our Walter? Dylan didn't answer right away, then he nodded. Yeah, he said quietly. It is. That Sunday just before 3 o'clock, Dylan drove up to Hillrest Cemetery for the first time in his life. No press, no audience, no clipboard, just a single white flower in his hand, bought from the gas station on Main. He didn't ask for directions, somehow he just knew where to walk. Down the 3rd row, past the rusted bench and the lilac bush that never bloomed, quite right to a headstone with no flowers, but freshly cleared leaves. Walter was already there, not in a uniform, just a dark coat, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't look over when Dylan approached, didn't speak. Dylan stepped beside him, paused, and laid the flower gently at the base of the stone. They stood that way for a while, side by side, no conversation, no ceremony, just the wind in the trees, and the quiet between two men who now knew exactly why this place mattered. Could this quiet bond heal old wounds? Back at the cafe, table 3 stayed empty. The rest of the week, not out of sadness, but out of respect, no one sat there, no one moved the jacket. And every morning at 6:40, I poured a black coffee, no cream, no sugar. I placed it across from the jacket like I always had, even if the hand that used to reach for it wasn't coming back. Some people leave behind speeches, statues, award shows, and plaques with gold trim, but not Walter. He left behind a folded coat, a $3 receipt, a clean bench, and a quiet town that finally remembered to look up. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough, because one day, if you're lucky, you'll meet someone who doesn't need a stage, doesn't want applause, doesn't even ask to be known. They just show up every day, same time, same place, and in doing so, they teach a whole town to bow its head, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude, the kind that lives in the quiet, the kind that doesn't need a banner to be remembered forever. In our darkest moments, kindness still finds a way, often in the quietest places. Not everyone who helps wants recognition. Some just need to know that today someone isn't going hungry, and sometimes that alone is enough to change a life. You may forget the story, but if no one retells it, history stays silent forever. Subscribe to Graceful Valor Stories, where justice is honored, kindness is remembered, and no act of quiet heroism is ever lost.